The Rotary Club of Tallahassee, Florida. Memorial Resolution, Rear Admiral John Edward Dabrowski, United States Navy. Whereas John Dabrowski passed away surrounded by his family on July the 1st, 2018, here in Tallahassee, where he had lived for many years with his beloved wife, Julie. And whereas John was a native of Beacon Falls, Connecticut, and obtained degrees at many educational institutions. In 1967, he graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, earning a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics. Thereafter, he attended Cornell School of Law from 1967 to 1969, prior to entering Officer Candidate School, where he was commissioned as an ensign in the United States Navy. And whereas John saw tours of duty as an unrestricted line officer on consecutive ships, including duty as a Combat Center Operations Officer, where he received his surface warfare classification, leading to executive officer duty at sea. In 1972, John transferred to the Judge Advocate General's Corps and returned to Cornell, graduating in 1973 with a Juris Doctor degree. Thereafter, he served 25 years of naval service as a senior in his area of specialty, ending as Chief Justice of the U.S. Navy Marine Corps Court of Criminal Appeals. For his distinguished service, John received numerous military awards. And whereas in 1998, John and Julie retired to Tallahassee for a life of distinguished service to the community. This included assuming leadership of the Retired Officers Association of Tallahassee from 2000 to 2001, and the presidency of the Rotary Club of Tallahassee from 2012 to 2013. In those capacities, he was a disciplined and effective leader, executive, respected and loved by all. Following his time as Rotary Club president, he continued to work diligently at many tasks supporting the club mission of service to community and the world. Throughout his life, John was also dedicated to service in the Catholic, Episcopal, and Anglican churches, and was a devoted teacher of Bible studies. He was a leading example of the Rotary service above self. Through declining health, he loved Rotary and gave to our mission with his heart and his energy. Under his leadership, our club was designated the best in the district. Whereas John was the loving father of a family which included his beloved wife Julie, 2 grown children, and 3 grandchildren. He was a disciplined man of integrity, strong character, and courage. He was a friend and fine example of his service to humanity and love of family. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Rotary Club of Tallahassee, at regular session, the members honor the life and achievement of esteemed fellow Rotarian, John Edward Dabrowski. Mr. Past President.
On behalf of the Rotary Club of Tallahassee, I am pleased to present you the copies of the memorial resolution. Ginger Boyd, where's Ginger? Ginger's a new member of our club that has Rotary experience, and she's shown herself to be a very receptive and capable member already, because she reminded me this would be very apropos to mention the Patriot Flag program. This is a fundraiser that has tremendous potential for us, and you pay a reasonable fee and a flag is placed at your residence. If anyone is interested in signing up for the Patriot Flag today, please see Gary Price at the conclusion of the meeting. Mary Penkowski, will you please introduce our speaker?
It is indeed a privilege to introduce to you someone I think almost everyone in the room already knows, okay? Bill Gunter spent more than 20 years as a public official serving the state of Florida. His variety of positions included the opportunity to be a state treasurer, a state insurance commissioner, a state fire marshal. In addition, he was a United States congressman and served as a state senator for Florida. He is a special human being to all of us because he served as an outstanding president of our club, and as such, he, in his year, was recognized by the Rotary Club of the district as the best club in the district. Bill has so many things going for them, but the one thing that I know he's proudest of are his 4 children, Kathy's 3, and the 15 grandchildren he has. But I would also point out to you, as many of you know, he was named as Great Floridian by both the governor and cabinet in return for the outstanding public service that he provided for us. I'd also mention that last May, many of you know that he and Kathy were named Distinguished Citizens by the Boy Scouts of America. I know there will be this giant round of applause for our speaker today, a person who is Uncle Sam's nephew, and that's his 4th of July presentation. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating the Honorable Bill Gunter.
Thank you very much, Mary. That was a most generous introduction. Believe me, it went down a lot better than when I was introduced at the Florida Capitol downtown recently as the formerly Honorable. I'd be remiss if I didn't, and I see they have departed, but mention the fact of what an honor it was to listen to the brass quintet here on the day before the 4th of July. I'm sure they have a lot of invitations. I think perhaps we have a leg up in the fact that Pat Flowers, our own member, is Dean of the College of Music at FSU. That helped us, but that was really an inspiring presentation on their part. And then what a privilege it is to be here with the Dombrowski family and to recognize and remember all that John has done and accomplished for humanity. So my wish for all of you today is that you and yours would have a great 4th of July as we celebrate this land we love. You know, President John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail on July 4, 1776 from his post in the Continental Congress. And he said, as I quote, "This great day in our history ought to be commemorated forever as the day of deliverance of our freedom as a nation, and it should be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, with sports, with games, with bells, guns, fireworks, and bonfires from one end of the country to the other. I'm sure if the president had thought about it, he would have included cookouts and barbecue as well in the celebration. Be reminded, though, of this fact. Every generation of Americans has gained strength through trials and adversity. It didn't matter if the challenge was physical, spiritual, or social. The American character held firm. Every generation of Americans has worked hard to build upon the quality of life attained by the last, to make this country a little bit better and stronger in the process, and to leave behind to its sons and daughters a legacy worth remembering. We thrill at the American ideals that are incorporated by the Founding Fathers in the immortal Declaration of Independence that was issued on that day. And also in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States. The wise men who wrote these documents impressed their concepts of freedom firmly upon the fabric of our country. Hence, when we reach for liberty, we forge the world's greatest democracy, a model for the family of nations. When we reach for justice, we abolish slavery forever in this country. When we reached for the moon, we left our footprints there. We succeeded because we were always willing to pay the price, to make the necessary sacrifices so that we would never have to settle for second best. Today's perils are posed by challenges to our national security presented by acts of aggression from ambitious despots willing to sponsor terrorism and play the nuclear card. There is also the partisan divide, the lack of respect for our fellow citizens who may have viewpoints different from our own. Additionally, we continue to saddle our children and our grandchildren with a skyrocketing national debt. These and other perils are grave and they are real, but no more so than the challenges the nation has met and overcome throughout our own history. That's why I was distressed recently to read that a majority of Americans believe that this decade will be worse than the last, that events are beyond the control of our leaders and of ourselves. While I understand the frustration, I do not share that pessimistic view of our future, and I don't believe Rotarians do either. I want to talk to you for a few moments about a mythical character who could well be responsible for some of what is wrong with American democracy today. Call him Uncle Sam's nephew. And if I say something about him that reminds you of yourself, don't think I'm picking on you in particular. There's no single Rotarian or American with all the characteristics of this mythical citizen, but it's a poor sermon that doesn't hit everybody somewhere. Uncle Sam's nephew is a cynic. When you tell him that something has to be done about corruption and waste in government, he says, "You can't do anything about that. Forget it." When you tell him there's a great need for men and women of moral character in public office, he says, "Politics is a dirty business. It's ugly. It's no place for a lady or a gentleman." Uncle Sam's nephew is a buck passer. He says, You can't blame me for the mess this country's in. I haven't voted in 15 years. And when you tell him somebody's got to do something about the national debt or about the cost of health care in America, he says, not me. I don't know anything about public affairs. Then he thumbs past the editorial page of the newspaper to the sports section or the crossword puzzle. Uncle Sam's nephew is an expert excuse maker. When it's time to go to the town hall meeting, he's too busy. When it's time to contribute to the candidate of his choice, he says, why waste the money? When it's time to write his congressman or his legislator about important issues, he says, my letter wouldn't even get past his secretary. Not only is Uncle Sam's nephew lax in his responsibilities as a citizen, he won't even take advantage of his privileges. He sits down at the table of freedom with democracy spread out before him like a 10-course dinner, and all he looks for is the gravy. He picks up the menu called the Bill of Rights and turns over immediately to the dessert page. He doesn't think about the cost of a single item. He just leaves it up to the cooks in Washington and Tallahassee and the kitchens there to interpret that menu, to dish up whatever they think it means, and he pays the tab. Uncle Sam's nephew is the one who votes to weaken the Rotary Club by his non-attendance or by not participating in a project. He votes to tear up the family by not spending enough time with his wife and children. He votes to do away with moral and educational standards by parking his kids or grandkids in school the way you plant a seed and then walk away and wait for it to sprout. He leaves it up to the teachers to fight the weeds and grow young Americans with intellectual capacity and morals. He likes to turn his responsibilities over to his friend Bob. When it's time to vote or to serve on the jury, he says, let Bob do it. After all, it was Bob who got us into the Iranian conflict. It was Bob who ran up the public debt. Bob is responsible for placing the people in government who put party above country and votes above both. But the truth is, my fellow Rotarians, you can't leave it up to Bob anymore, because it is your brains and your ability that are needed in our government to participate, and only you can put them there. I believe that there are hundreds of people who would gladly do something for democracy if they just knew where to take hold. I say you can begin where democracy itself begins, at the local level. Local government is the most important government of all. It's the cradle or the grave of freedom, depending upon how much attention you pay to the institutions that make it up. And I'm talking about the city council, the county commission, the school board, the courts. Go to the next meeting of one or all of these local governmental bodies. When you call for jury service, accept that responsibility without making the usual excuses. Get out and vote in every election without having to be prodded by the League of Women Voters. Be willing to serve in public office by election or appointment when the opportunity comes your way. And support and advise your chosen candidate after the election as well as before. Attend the next session of the legislature here in Tallahassee and get acquainted with the people who pass the laws under which you live and who levy the taxes that you pay. Go to a nearby school and talk to the principal. Talk to him or her about overcrowded classrooms, inadequate facilities, and a shortage of competent teachers. We've got to stop acting like Uncle Sam's nephew, irresponsible though he is. And remember, we are Uncle Sam. We are the people who used to govern ourselves in a reasonable and responsible manner, and we can do it again if we make up our minds and if we commit to what it takes. You see, democracy is not an accomplished fact. It's an unceasing crusade, and every generation of Americans has a solemn obligation to build and strengthen the freedoms that were passed on to each of us. The individual who really wants to do something to fight poor citizenship will find a way to pay it forward, and others will find excuses. But when the chips are down and terrorism is at our back door, corruption in the kitchen, communism in the living room, and recession in the attic, I say you can't eat excuses, and you can't live the American dream or fulfill our destiny as a nation with excuses. Fellow Rotarians, are we ever going to stop wavering and start acting on behalf of our republic? Now is the time to do it on this 4th of July. Thank you for your thoughtful attention.
Thank you, Bill. This may be the last time I preside over a meeting here, and I want to say two things. One is that I do believe that this is one of the most potent forces for good in Tallahassee. But we have so much opportunity to do better, and John touched on one of those. There are so many opportunities for service that require so very little of us. One would be, Scott, if you'd stand up, please. Scott is our new sergeant in arms, which can be a bit of a thankless task. So when he emails you or calls you, please respond to the call to be at the head table. The view is good and the food is the same. The youth camp, to repeat that, is such a vital project. And if the Cadillac is full, I'll drive my humble Honda Accord. And we'll go over there. So it'd be great. It's so gratifying to be with those young people and to serve them. And the Patriot Flag program, before mentioned, I'm going to sign up for Patriot Flag, but I've been procrastinating. If you've been doing the same thing, you could probably go to Walmart and get a flag a little bit less expensively, but when you pay the annual fee for the Patriot Flag, you support the programs of the club. We average less than 50% of our members in attendance on any given Wednesday, and obviously you can make a better contribution if you show up. President Kay Kendrick is going to be spectacular in her role. She's got a wonderful board, and I just urge all of you to show up next Wednesday and give her that warm Rotary welcome. And reach out to another friend, a fellow Rotarian, and invite them to come along as well. Is there anything we've missed for the good of the Lord? Having said that, will you please join me in the four-way test? Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I don't know what the new Rotary theme is. Julie, what is it? Be the inspiration. We're still going on last year. This meeting is now adjourned.